My 600-pound cousin is furious that I struggle to push her wheelchair. Story: my cousin is approaching 600 pounds and requires a mobility scooter, as walking even short distances is very painful for her. This July, she has an out-of-state wedding to attend, and I was asked to taxi her to and from the event, as I'm not currently employed, so my calendar is open. Unfortunately, my car will not carry a mobility scooter, so my cousin will be required to use a wheelchair. The problem is that this event is being held in a public park. I can barely push her wheelchair on a paved surface, let alone across grass and dirt. I tried contacting a couple rental agencies in the area, but they would not lease scooters in this case because of the off-road use. My aunt and uncle have also declined to loan me their truck, which is how my cousin normally gets around because I have a pretty crappy driving history. I did look into renting a vehicle that could carry the scooter, but my cousin cannot afford to pay for that, and obviously with me being jobless, I can't either. The distance from parking to the event area is about 40 yards, which my cousin cannot handle walking. About the best solution anyone's come up with is that the party has a flat bed they're using to tote supplies from the cars, but my cousin says she would feel humiliated having to be rolled in like that. My cousin is furious with me, saying I'm shaming her by saying I cannot push her, but I feel it's the honest truth. Like 100% the thin wheels of the wheelchair are going to dig into the ground, and I am not strong enough to handle that. My cousin has done a lot for me in the past, so I do feel bad saying no, but I feel like I've looked into every option at this point. Am I the a-hole for not being willing to just go and give it the college try? Also, please don't degrade my cousin. I know I can't stop you, but it's all been said before. Please and thank you. Update: this morning I got a call from my aunt who said my cousin was no longer going to be attending the wedding. Sadly, my cousin was hostile towards the bride's mother, who had selected the venue, and so her invitation was retracted. I feel depressed because I know my cousin did really want to go, but I still don't think I was wrong to tell her I couldn't handle this. I really do appreciate all of you who supported me in my decision, as well as those of you who may have felt otherwise but were still so kind to me. Thank you all. Response 1. NTA, you mentioned a truck that her own parents have. Where are they going to be on this weekend that they can't take her? I can't imagine 600 pounds even fits in your vehicle. Not sure how that would be managed either, but not your problem. Reply 1. Yeah, I'm kind of concerned about my car too, but I have another big family member who is able to get in and out of it okay, but they are only about 350. My uncle has significant health issues that would prevent him from doing this drive, and my aunt is working and does not have vacation hours to utilize. I've tried pressing them about the truck, but they're stubborn. I would also like to note that they are not at all upset with me over this situation, so it's not like they're being hypocritical. Reply 2. This aunt and uncle are her parents? If yes, that truck needs to be used. Either tell them you drive the truck or the three of them can find another solution. Reply 3. If her parents aren't upset with him for refusing to push the wheelchair, I don't think they'll have a problem if he tells them to find another solution. I don't think they really want their daughter to go. At best, they're neutral about it. I suspect that there's something else going on there between his cousin and her parents, and he's just gotten caught up in whatever it is. Bottom line, OP is not the a-hole, and it's up to his cousin to make the necessary arrangements to get herself to this wedding. Or if the bride and/or groom really want her there, they need to make the venue accessible to her. OP was nice to agree to help, but that doesn't make it his problem. He's the one doing the favor. Haven't heard anything about anyone paying him for his time/gas. She doesn't get to demand what it is he offers to do. He has offered a solution, the flatbed. She has rejected it. It's no longer OP's concern. She, with or without the bridal party, can figure it out. Reply 4. Aunt and uncle have to let someone they don't trust driving use their truck, even though they're not blaming OP for not being able to help? What? Reply 5. NTA. Look, I've seen the difference between 350 and 500, and it's significant. I don't know your build, but I know there's no way in hell I'd be able to push either of them in a wheelchair. It sucks, but your cousin's size and health concerns mean she may have to sit a lot of events out, including this wedding. That is not your fault. You've tried to be accommodating, and you can't be held responsible for her mobility needs. Response 2, NTA. Honestly, you sound like you have searched for every possible solution. I don't know why your cousin is furious with you. Reply 1, misplaced anger due to embarrassment would be my guess. No one gets to that size with good mental health, so it might be easier for her to lash out rather than self-reflect. Reply 2, agree she certainly has something adjacent to depression and an ed, and that she may be lashing out too. But do trust me, she is self-reflecting and self-loathing more than you imagine. Unfortunately, most people are horrible and discriminatory to overweight people, even if just chubby, with no related health reasons. When you get to that level of morbid obesity and such reduced mobility and dependency due to weight, people can be unimaginably cruel, and just being the subject of this debacle is extra necky, humiliating. Still, she is for sure being more cruel to herself than anyone else. I'm way liar, but obese, and my mobility issues are due to an autoimmune inflammatory disease, but I can pass for someone without mobility issues for short enough a time. Because my issue isn't shortness of breath or anything like that. It's very localized pain, no matter what I'm doing. I have still suffered a lot of abuse, internal and external. I can't imagine the psychological pain she is feeling. I already have trouble fencing a will to live, but in her situation, especially if she can't afford meds or a path to bariatric surgery. Since I was a kid who was always overweight, but not always obese, I would say I would take the deal of going to the hospital and being fed the minimum for a 2B. You would just sedate me, or even without. When I was 7, I even thought of cutting my belly off with a knife, and then the hospital could stop the bleeding. I was quite young, as this is obviously not feasible or that simple. I'm just trying to say, can you imagine the headspace you need to be at 6 to think about it seriously? And back then I was just chubby, if not as bullied by adults. You can imagine what happens when you get to that size. You have to at times shut off as a defense, but self-hate and self-blame will always permeate inside, and it's an outer defense. Thankfully, OP is kind about all this and has done all they can, and much more than most people would. I think Cousin is very lucky to have someone like OP. I was reading a book to try to distract from how awful I felt, and there was one distasteful fat joke that appeared without warning, wasn't funny, and was unnecessary. I thought that was a one-off and it's common, so I've continued reading. That thing only got so much worse and disgusting, really. I even had a freaking therapy and group therapy for weight loss surgery. Ask us if we looked at morbidly obese people with disgust and now that we were thinner. Like, what the F? And she also led a discussion about chewing and spitting and eating disorder behavior, get encouraged, and only then did she say maybe that's not a good idea. And how they celebrated this dude that kept the weight off at the cost of drinking all day instead of eating when his job was a driver. And after surgery, you get drunk really easily. I'm just done, honestly. Reply 3. When I was a kid, my best friend was incessantly bullied for being chubby, and she tried to cut her belly fat off as a result, then was hospitalized. She's doing much better now, 20 plus years later. But man, people are so effing terrible to others about weight. Reply 4. She's angry that I basically won't try, but I feel like I know my own limitations and the limitations of thin wheels on soft ground. Reply 5. She's going to be humiliated when she's stuck in the grass and the entire wedding watches people struggle to help her out. Response 3. You are not the a-hole. Just for your information, your car and its interior are not designed to have 600 plus lbs in one seat. IDC what car you have. Unless you have a pickup and she rides in the back, your car is not made for that kind of heavy-duty work. For example, a Dodge Charger can only carry 865 pounds total if the weight is equally distributed. Yes, I know it can probably handle more, but tell your family it simply isn't safe. Maybe this can be her wake-up call. She's too big to attend a wedding. Reply 1. This, and we all know damn well if OP folded to the pressure and agreed to transport the cousin, which resulted in his/her car getting damaged, it would be crickets from the family when he/she needed money for car repairs. Reply 2. I have a Kia Optima. I have another family member who is about 350 who says it's comfortable for him. I do admit that I am concerned she may have trouble, but I did buy seatbelt extenders and she seems confident. Reply 3. Depending on the length of the drive, your suspension could get messed up with such uneven weight distribution. It's less will she fit, and more can you transport her safely without damage to her or the car. Reply 4. Or damage to OP. Pushing that much weight in a wheelchair could seriously harm them. A person 1/2 her size would be incredibly difficult. It may actually be impossible to push 600 pounds. It's a safety issue all around. Reply 5. There is a huge difference between 350 and 600, but I'll bet she is much more than that. I'm also not talking about comfort. I'm talking about how much weight a car should carry. If she sits in the middle of the back seat, I can guarantee that you feel a difference in the car's handling. And then, after a nerve-wracking ride, you have to push tiny wheelchair wheels on sand. Nope. Any portable wheelchair usually has wheels specifically made for pavement. It may hurt, but you definitely need to walk away from this responsibility. Next thing you know, you push her the 40 yards and she feels uncomfortable and has to leave. Or what if she needs to use the bathroom? Are you equipped for that amount of help? Response 4. And I also want to say that I mean absolutely no offense, but is she even capable to take a long car ride? I watch my 600 pounds life, and a lot of those people aren't capable of going on long car rides. I don't know the situation here though, just something to think about. Reply 1, and in a Kia no less. I don't know how she'd fit in the car. Not the a-hole, OOP. You have exhausted all of the possible solutions. Reply 2, short of renting a U-Haul truck, somehow getting her in the bed, and then driving with her outside in the wind the way there, and then backing up to the wedding and dropping the tailgate so she can see yes. I think OP has exhausted all the truly humane options. Saying no is OP choosing dignity for their cousin, even if the cousin doesn't see it that way. Reply 3, I'm sure it's often played up for the camera, as ordered by producers no doubt, but watching that show, I've seen the real effort people have to take to push someone in a wheelchair, even on a perfectly smooth surface. OP, you're dealing with laws of physics here. You can't stop the wheelchair from sinking into the ground, and you can't make yourself strong enough to deal with that. Your family has to understand that and then figure something else out, even if that's something else being she can't safely attend and not the a-hole. Reply 4. I don't think they play it up for the cameras. The human body was not meant to be 600 plus pounds. It's hard to move that type of weight around. Reply 5. I meant more like engineer the situation so the cameras can catch that scenario. Like, let's have a scene where you try to push her in the chair. Response 5, what does she expect you to do? If you physically can't do it, you can't do it. Maybe her parents would be willing to give you the money for a rental van that could fit a mobility scooter. Edited to add, not the a-hole. Reply 1. They're paying for my gas expenses and the hotel room, but even that is a very big financial strain on them as they have very limited income. Reply 2. Then, unfortunately, she just can't go to the wedding. It sucks, sure, but there's no feasible transportation and no feasible way for her to actually get to the ceremony area without getting stuck. The only reasonable thing to do is to just sit this event out. Reply 3. Yup, that's the only reasonable answer. Over the course of my life, there have been quite a few things I've wanted to do but couldn't, without placing an undue burden on the people around me. So I just didn't do them. I'm not trying to diss OP's cousin in the least. But when a person is that overweight, regardless of what caused it, some medications can cause significant weight gain that doesn't just go away when you stop taking them. Everything needs to be carefully planned and coordinated. Anything less can be a true disaster. And you need to have the resources to do it, which she doesn't. And that's just a fact. Reply 4. So if this disables your car or causes your drive shaft to crack or any of 100 other problems with an overstrained suspension, they're not going to be in any position to help fix it, are they? I think it best that you politely refuse this privilege, not the a-hole. Reply 5. Sounds like your cousin is extremely entitled. Everyone tried, but sometimes things just don't work out. Response 6. NTA. For me, it's nothing to do with her size, but the fact you've gone out of your way to try and help, and you've been met with a furious response. You've in no way shamed her. In fact, you've warned people not to be rude about her in their replies to your post. Also, I may be wrong, but I'm picking up a bit of a bullying vibe towards you. You reference having a bad driving history and being unemployed. Please don't let anyone treat you badly when you are clearly a thoughtful person. Reply 1. This. Has /she/ tried to figure out something to deal with her situation, or is this all on you for some odd reason? Gotta be realistic. If it's physically impossible and potentially damaging, like, not the a-hole. Reply 2. For real? I was anticipating something cringe/offensive from reading the title of this post just to find a genuine, compassionate concern for their cousin. Definitely not the a-hole. Doesn't sound like it'd even be safe for them or their cousin to try to make this work. Response 7. I was a full-time carer for my mom for her last 5 years, and she put on a lot of weight in that time because she basically refused to move. And once you stop moving, whether by choice or not, you don't always have the choice to start again, at least not without a lot of help. Muscles atrophy fast. Between year 2 and 3, she went from maybe 150, 160 at 4'10 to 250. I lost a bunch of weight, and around the time we crossed over, when she got heavier than me, I found I could barely push her anymore. I was always pretty strong. I'm 5'9 and formerly muscular, but when she got to 250, I just couldn't do it. It wasn't even a question of whether I could do it without injuring myself. I tore my rotator cuff picking her off the floor several times in the past. It was that I physically could not. Before her last 2 years, I got her to doctor's appointments and hair appointments and vaccinations, and we sometimes went shopping. But during the last 2 years, she left the house twice for Christmas dinners at restaurants when my brother picked us up, and all she had to do was get down 2 steps into her chair and then into the car. Even that was almost impossible, and the last time she went out, she collapsed going out the front door, and I had to lift her off the floor again. She weighed about 20 pounds more than me at that point, and it wrecked my back for a couple months. At 250, I was able to push her about 20 feet from the car to the table inside the restaurant and no further. I would not have been able to do it if she had gained even 10 pounds more. Your cousin weighs more than double what my mom weighed, and even if you are considerably stronger than me, you can't realistically do this. I do not want to shame your cousin any more than I want to shame my mom. She did it to me for most of my childhood, and it was horrid. But realistically, at her weight, most events are going to be impossible for her. Most people will not be able to push her. Most cars will not be able to carry her. Most chairs will not support her. It is sad and most likely humiliating and hard to accept. I hope that your cousin decides to seek help, but you are not the a-hole for not being able to do this. Nobody could reasonably be expected to. Reply 1, thank you for sharing this experience. I hope OP reads it. It's important context to take into consideration. Reply 2, even without excess weight, there comes a time when physically carrying someone isn't possible. My grandmother lived with my parents into her old age. She eventually became unable to walk as her body declined. The final straw was my dad pulling his back, trying to pick her up when she had fallen. She was very angry about having to go into assisted living, where she was largely confined to a bed, but at that point, her body was incapable of even getting in and out of a wheelchair. She was in her late 90s, and she hadn't made any purposeful effort to stay mobile. And she was too large to be carried, and too old to worry about mobility devices that were more intensive than a wheelchair. The end fact was, she could be angry all she wanted. But physically, my parents could no longer care for her. It's not ageist, or in OP's case, ableist to say that some things are just not physically possible. Reply 3. When my frail, skinny granddad was in assisted living towards the end of his life, the nurses were adamant that we were not allowed to lift him or try to help him to stand. They were to be called every single time. The reason is they are trained in how to do it, have experience, have more people available, etc., etc. One nurse told me she often sees elderly couples go downhill fast. Once one person is immobile because the spouse will likely injure themselves trying to help, then it gets worse for everyone. It's just the limitations of human bodies. Response 8, NTA, it's a safety issue as well. My brother pushed my mom, 150 pounds, around a street fair on relatively decent pavement and felt it in his back for a few days. It's her safety as well. If you struggle with the wheelchair, she could fall out it. Reply 1, it's a safety issue as well. Came here to say this. I'm grieving a close friend who didn't use an adequate mobility device and had a fatal fall. Cousin could fall or get stuck getting out of the car. Suppose one side of the wheelchair gets stuck on something and she tumbles out. There are likely other harmful scenarios too, even with the special wheelchair. I can't think of a safe way for OP to do this. It's possible that he could end up getting injured somehow too. Don't even try OP. If something happens to cousin with this scheme, her parents will blame you, not the a-hole. Response 9, NTA. You're not shaming your cousin. Most people wouldn't be able to push 600 pounds across dirt and grass. How long is the drive? I've watched my 600 lb life, and most morbidly obese people can't stay in the car very long without being in pain, especially if you have a smaller car. Either way, your cousin should be upset with her parents for not loaning you their truck so you can take the scooter. It's obvious that the truck would be the best solution since it's made to haul heavier loads and can accommodate the scooter, making it easier for your cousin to get around. Response 10, NTA. The reality is that most people can't push 600 pounds around on flat pavement, much less harsher terrain. It's not a fat-shaming issue. It just isn't something most people can do. Reply 1, exactly. It's really hard to push more than your body weight, and the more weight, the harder the time you'll have pushing it. It's not about shaming the cousin, it's physics. Response 11, why is speaking truth to morbidly obese so damned difficult? She's pushing 1/3 of a ton in weight, and she's offended that you can't shove her around on your own? I'm not degrading her, I'm describing her. That's the truth, and if she can't manage her weight any better than that, there is one mental illness that causes obesity. Everything else is just something you should adapt your life to. Why is it your job to do so? No strength, no willpower, no tolerance for being called out on it. Let her get herself there. If something goes wrong, you're liable for it. Given her attitude so far, I wouldn't put it past her to sue. Not the a-hole. Response 12. You are not the a-hole. My wife weighs 230 pounds. I weigh 135. I am reasonably fit. My wife has dementia and has increasing balance issues. I picked up a transport chair, wheelchair designed to be pushed, not wheeled by the person in it. I thought that it would mean that we could take walks again. She could walk for as long as she wanted, and then I could push her the rest of the way. Well, not so much. On our first use of it, I discovered that I could push her in it on flat, perfect pavement, but any incline or rough surface was not possible. I can't imagine trying to push someone over 600 pounds. Reply 1, I'm sorry. This has got to be so tough for the both of you. I hope you have help and can take breaks, and I hope she has more good days than bad. Response 13, NTA. She needs to accept that her size comes with limitations. It's not mean or rude to admit that you physically can't handle pushing her in her wheelchair around. I'm sure that's hard for your cousin to hear, but it's not on you. Edited to add, she'll be even more embarrassed if you do give it a go and you can't push her and she's stuck and you need someone else's help. Response 14, NTA. Is your cousin an adult? If so, she's responsible for figuring out her own transportation. I can't imagine anything more humiliating for her than getting stuck in the dirt/grass in a wheelchair, so that doesn't seem like a viable option. If your aunt and uncle are typically responsible for transporting her, then I would shift responsibility back to them. They can either drive her, ask someone else to take her who they trust with their truck, or hire a driver. Reply 1. I was wondering her age as well. She sounds very immature, but it could just be entitlement or any number of psychological issues. Response 15. Being 600 pounds means you miss out on crap because of your weight. Nobody owes your cousin to be pushed around in a wheelchair because they are too obese to walk 100 yards. You are not the a-hole, and this is not your fault or doing. Your cousin is 600 pounds for one reason alone, lack of personal accountability, exactly like she is doing in this situation by blaming you. Response 16, NTA. My late husband was morbidly obese, so I am going to tell you something that he often told me, paraphrased as it's been several years since he passed away due to the obesity. It is not my responsibility, the kid's responsibility, or anyone but him to assist him getting to places. If he was unable to walk that far, he did not go. If he couldn't fit in the seat, he didn't go. Did he miss out on things? Yes, but he never wanted his choices to prevent me or my kids' ability to do things. You are not shaming her, but it is the simple fact that you are physically incapable of getting her from point A to point B. She says she would be humiliated to be brought in on the flat bed, but how would she feel if the wheelchair got stuck midway or if you somehow hurt yourself? Response 17, you are not the a-hole. Having previously attempted to push a 300-pound relative over grass and had major challenges, I cannot fathom how it is physically possible. It was also humiliating for my relative to have people see me visibly struggle, and scary for both of us. There were times I was worried Cher was going to tip when hitting a rut in the ground. If your cousin is going to be mad at anyone, it should be her parents for not letting you drive the truck. Are there wheelchair taxis in your area? That's what I use now, so relative can use their motorized wheelchair. Everyone is happier this way. Response 18. NTA. She is probably angry because she feels humiliated, but you have done everything possible to find a solution. One of her parents will just have to drive the truck if they won't lend it. Response 19. Is your cousin Amberlynn Reed? She is taking zero accountability for her actions and doing nothing to provide solution. Not the a-hole. Pushing her in a wheelchair would be a strain on your body. Response 20. Don't light yourself on fire for your cousin. Seriously, you've already gone above and beyond what most people would do. Not the a-hole.